There was something about American wealth in the 1980s that looked different from any decade before or since. The gold fixtures, the power suits, the unapologetic display of success. If someone lived through it at the top, they remember exactly what that era felt like. This was a time when America celebrated wealth openly. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The stock market was booming, and being rich was not something to hide, it was something to show. The penthouse apartments, the country club memberships, the charity galas where women wore diamonds the size of grapes. This was the decade of Dynasty in Dallas, where television reflected back the aspirations of an entire nation. The upper class in America during the 1980s lived in a world that seemed almost impossibly glamorous. Money flowed from Wall Street bonuses, real estate deals, corporate mergers, and inherited fortunes that were multiplying. For those at the top, the 1980s were golden. Let's walk through what daily life actually looked like for wealthy Americans during that unforgettable decade. Some of this might seem excessive by today's standards. Some of it reveals how much attitudes about wealth have changed. Let's step into that world. Homes for the upper class in the 1980s were statements. In Manhattan, the most prestigious addresses were along Fifth Avenue and Park Avenue, where pre-war apartments had marble foyers, wood-burning fireplaces, and formal dining rooms that seated 20. These apartments cost millions, and the CO-op boards were notoriously selective. Having money was not enough. Families needed pedigree, connections, and the right references. In the suburbs, wealthy families lived on states. Greenwich, Connecticut. The Hamptons, Grosse Pointe, Michigan. Bel Air and Beverly Hills in California. These homes had circular driveways, tennis courts, swimming pools, and grounds maintained by full-time staff. The architecture ranged from Georgian colonial to sprawling ranch style, but the scale was always impressive. Inside these homes, the aesthetic was opulent. Unlike the earth tones of the 1970s, the upper class in the 1980s embraced drama. Lacquered walls in deep colors, chintz fabric on overstuffed furniture, crystal chandeliers, brass and glass everywhere. Coffee tables had smoked glass tops with brass frames. Mirrors were oversized and often had Art Deco styling. The master bedroom suite was a new concept that the wealthy embraced fully. Walk-in closets the size of bedrooms, marble bathrooms with jacuzzi tubs and separate showers. His and hers sinks became standard. Some homes had exercise rooms before gyms were common, equipped with Nautilus machines and stationary bikes. Household staff was common among the wealthy. A live-in housekeeper, sometimes a cook, and often a nanny cared for the children. In the grandest homes, there might be a butler, a driver, and groundskeepers. Managing staff was part of running an upper-class household. The cars in wealthy driveways told a story. Mercedes-Benz was the ultimate status symbol. The S-Class sedan in black or silver announced arrival before anyone stepped out. BMW was the choice for those who wanted something sportier. The 7 Series was for executives. The 3 Series for their children home from college. For those who wanted to stand out, there were Rolls-Royce and Bentley. These cars were rare enough to turn heads even in wealthy neighborhoods. Jaguar sedans appealed to Anglophiles. Porsche 911 sat in garages as weekend cars. The minivan had not yet conquered family transportation. Wealthy families with children drove wood-paneled station wagons, or, increasingly, the new Range Rovers appearing on American roads. These vehicles suggested country estates and outdoor pursuits, even if they never left paved roads. Limousines were common for evening events. Wealthy couples would hire a car and driver for galas, theater openings, and dinner parties. Arriving in a limousine was not considered excessive. It was expected. Before we continue with the social scene and lifestyle that defined upper-class America in this era, if you are enjoying this look back at how the wealthy really lived and want to explore more decades and places, consider subscribing. There are so many more stories about how Americans built the life we know today. Fashion for upper-class Americans in the 1980s was about power and display. Women wore designer labels prominently. Oscar de la Renta, Bill Blass, Carolina Herrera, and Valentino dressed society women for events. Chanel suits with gold buttons were daytime staples. For evening, gowns were dramatic, with big shoulders, bold colors, and sequins. Jewelry was not subtle. Gold was everywhere, heavy and gleaming. Diamond earrings, tennis bracelets, statement necklaces, Cartier, Tiffany, Harry Winston, and Van Cleef and Arpels were the names that mattered. Women collected serious pieces and wore them regularly. Men wore power suits, with double-breasted jackets and wide shoulders. Suspenders replaced belts for a cleaner line. Silk ties in bold patterns finished the look. The Wall Street look was aspirational across corporate America. Custom tailoring from Savile Row or Italian designers like Armani signaled real wealth. Rolex watches, particularly the gold day date known as the President, were ubiquitous on wealthy wrists. The social calendar for upper-class Americans was packed. Country club membership was essential. These clubs had waiting lists that stretched for years. Membership meant access to golf courses, tennis courts, swimming pools, and dining rooms where business deals happened over lunch. Charity galas were the main events of the social season. The Met Gala in New York was already becoming important. Hospital benefits, museum openings, and disease research fundraisers filled calendars from September through May. Attending meant buying tables that cost thousands of dollars. Women served on committees, organizing these events as a form of social currency. Summers meant specific destinations. The Hamptons for New Yorkers, Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard for old money New Englanders, Palm Beach in winter, Aspen for skiing. These places were where the wealthy gathered, recognizing each other, doing business, and arranging marriages for the next generation. Dining for the upper class meant fine restaurants with formal service. In New York, Ellie's Cirque was the place to be seen. Lutèce and La Côte Basque attracted the elite. In Los Angeles, Spago became the celebrity destination. These restaurants had regular tables for their best customers. The maitre d' knew names and preferences. At home, wealthy families hosted dinner parties with multiple courses. Caterers handled the cooking, and staff served the meal. The table was set with fine china, crystal stemware, and silver flatware. Conversation was expected to be witty and informed. These evenings were performances as much as meals. Food itself was changing. French cuisine remained the pinnacle of sophistication, but California cuisine was emerging. Wolfgang Puck was making gourmet food approachable for the fashionable set. Wine knowledge became important. Having a serious wine cellar was a mark of cultivation. Children of the upper class lived in a parallel universe. They attended private schools, often boarding schools in New England with names that opened doors for generations. Prep schools, such as Andover, Exeter, Choate, and Groton, prepared students for Ivy League admission. Education was an investment in maintaining family position. Summers meant camp, but not ordinary camp. They went to sailing programs and tennis academies, and they took European tours with educational components. Children learned to ski in Aspen or in Switzerland. They spent time at family compounds in summer destinations. These children had advantages that compounded. They had SAT tutors, benefited from legacy admissions, and landed internships arranged through family connections. The path from prep school to Harvard to Wall Street or to a white shoe law firm was well worn. Technology was beginning to enter wealthy homes in new ways. The car phone was the ultimate status symbol of the late 1980s. These phones cost thousands to install, and calls were expensive, but being reachable in your Mercedes announced success. Early cell phones, the size of bricks, appeared by the decade's end. Home computers were curiosities. Some wealthy families bought IBM personal computers, or Apple Macintoshes, though they were used mostly by children. The fax machine became essential for anyone doing business from home. Entertainment systems grew elaborate. Large-screen televisions, still rear projection and furniture-sized, displayed wealth. VCR players allowed private screenings of films. High-end stereo systems filled rooms with music from compact disc players, the new technology that wealthy early adopters embraced. What defined upper-class America in the 1980s was unashamed ambition. The Reagan era celebrated success and wealth creation. Tax cuts benefited the wealthy significantly, and deregulation opened new opportunities. Wall Street bonuses reached levels that seemed impossible, and the money flowed into real estate, art, fashion, and lifestyle. This was the decade when corporate raiders became celebrities, and when investment bankers were cultural figures. The phrase "greed is good" from the film Wall Street captured something real about the era's values, even though it was intended as criticism. The wealthy of the 1980s built collections. Art became an investment as well as decoration. Impressionist paintings sold for record prices. Contemporary artists like Jean-Michel Basquiat and Julian Schnabel became stars, whose work wealthy collectors competed to own. The lifestyle was not without critics. The contrast between wealth and poverty grew starker. Homelessness increased in American cities. The AIDS crisis devastated communities while the wealthy attended galas. The excess of the era carried shadows. But for those living at the top, the 1980s felt like a golden age. The economy rewarded them. Culture celebrated them. Their children were positioned for success. The future seemed to promise more of the same. The decade ended with the stock market crash of 1987, a warning sign that the party might not last forever. But the crash recovered quickly, and the 1980s closed with wealth still ascendant in American life. For those who lived through this era at the top, it was a time of extraordinary privilege openly displayed. The homes, the cars, the clothes, the social calendar, all of it announced position and success. The 1980s taught America that wealth was something to pursue and celebrate. For those with memories of this remarkable era, there is always more history to explore.